Hi, how are you?
Good to see you. Fine. How are you?
Good.
How are you feeling? I love your shirt. Is that stripes or gingham? That's stripes.
Stripes.
I like it very much.
Thank you.
You look happy.
Yeah.
Do you have a list of everybody in our subcommittee that you can do
Yes.
roll call? Will you be able to do the roll call?
Yeah.
I have a list. I'll start and then I'll have you do the roll calls. I have a list here, but I don't think it has everybody in front of me and I don't know where so okay, thank you. And okay. So we'll get the integrators tonight.
hmm That I saw that'll be nice. I've never heard from them, so that would be
I
cool.
know, me neither. I'm very excited to hear from them. Um,
Let's see.
so are you excited?
Yeah. Yeah. Busy with a lot of stuff to wrap up,
Yeah. It's hard when you leave. When I left the LAA, I underestimated the amount of time it took me to. Well, am I here twice? Hold on. I think I'm here.
You are.
I underestimated. I said in a week I'll empty everything, and I have to come in on Saturday and finish and cleaning, and it's just emptying the files in the computer, the physical desk, going through everything and sorting things out, and what do you want to throw away, what do you want to keep, and then getting them to your car. It was a long process, but it was good. Yeah. So you're usually playing your cool music.
Usually Leslie gives me that music.
Oh.
Yeah, she prepares it. She'll prepare a playlist for. Hi, Commissioner Russell.
Good evening. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing well, thanks. Wow, you are super busy, Julissa, because you are at all of the meetings.
I don't know how she does it and keep.
I don't know how you do it.
No, not at the last two. Thankfully, Mindy filled in for me. But yeah, I at all the meetings.
And I think for me, adding the base camp was like a life changer. Because I'm usually not into project management processes and apps and stuff. But base camp is like, oh my, it's in base camp, so let me upload it there, let me find it there, or let me see who's posting what. So it's a repository of everything, so it's fantastic.
Yeah, it reduced my email traffic significantly. Yes. Just that helped,
It helped a lot. So yeah, yeah. So how are you doing, Tiffany? Commissioner Russell?
How are you doing, Commissioner Pascal?
Doing good, thank you.
Good.
Excited to listen to the integrators.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. So I am so in terms of our agenda.
Yeah. So what I'm gonna let me see. So I think we open together, but I think if you want to, I can give a welcome. Julissa, she has the role. She has everybody's name, so she's gonna do the actual roll call because she has the name. So she's gonna do that for us, which is great. Okay. But I can give a welcome, and the less time we take in this welcome, the better, because we want more time for the integrator. So
yeah,
you want to give a quick welcome, the roll call, and then pass on to you within a few minutes, because I want to get that started really soon, and then after that, we'll continue. But I'll give the welcome, and then you can speak right after.
Okay.
Hi, how are you?
Wonderful.
Hello, Commissioner. So it's 6:57. So.
How did you end up on twice on here?
Huh?
How did you end up twice?
You know why? Because I entered first and they weren't letting me in and then I entered again and they let me in. So am I there twice? I thought I deleted one of them.
Okay.
So, I had 2 videos. Now I have 1 video, but apparently I still have a. Okay, let me cancel. Hello? Can you see me? Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I'm trying, but yeah. Good evening.
Hello, everyone.
Good evening, Commissioner Carriello, Commissioner Owen. Tiffany, are the Linwood panelists, are they coming through here or is it a separate link?
No, same link.
Same link, okay.
Yeah, the same link for the meeting. Mhm.
Oh, then I can't turn her camera on. Okay. Maybe if we see that they are not here around 7, we can go ahead with other parts of the meeting maybe, and
Oh,
then
for sure.
while
Yeah.
they congregate, because how
Mhm.
many are we expecting?
3,
3, okay.
but we can talk about the video, the homework assignment that we did for last week. So we
Okay, that's a good idea.
Mhm.
It's 7 o'clock now. Let's give it 1 more minute. I think somebody else is joining right now. So once this person comes in, I'll go ahead and get started. That's me. Keep trying to. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Good evening. Welcome to the second meeting of the Mission and Vision Subcommittee of the Social Justice, Race and Equity Commission for the City of Brookhaven. Today is Thursday, May 6th. It's 7 o'clock. We're gonna go and get ahead and get started pretty quickly. We are planning a panel of the Linwood integrators today during our meeting. And we want to talk also about the process of public participation. And we want to talk also about the resources that we have on Basecamp later today. So we're gonna, we had first in the agenda, the Linwood panel, but while we wait for them to join, Commissioner Russell, Co-Chair Russell wanted to go ahead and talk a little bit about the redlining video that we watch for homework. And Julissa is gonna kindly take a roll call for today's meeting. So go ahead, Julissa, and then go ahead, Commissioner Russell.
Commissioner Russell,
Present.
Commissioner Pasquale,
Present.
Commissioner Corn,
Present.
Commissioner Owen,
Present.
Commissioner Kane. Oh, I see on the chat she put present. Commissioner Hardy,
Present.
Commissioner Hershen,
Present.
Commissioner Peacehold, Commissioner Peacehold, Commissioner Alexander,
Present.
and Commissioner Cariello.
Present.
Thank you. Well, good evening, everyone. It's good to see you all. We have a huge charge and one that we're quite excited about. And so in order to kind of set the tone and try to understand the climate or even the systems that are at play in cities, we wanted to go back. And that took us way back to post-war when the GIs came home trying to utilize their GI Bill. We sent that 20-minute or so video home in hopes that you had a chance to take a look at it. And I just kind of wanted to start, and for those of you who didn't have a chance, that's okay. But I would love to hear some initial thoughts around what you saw. And was this new information? Was this something new that you had just learned as a result of watching the film? This was it came from a 3-part series, Race, Power of an Illusion. And it was just a snippet of one of the series called The House We Live In. And just to give a very brief synopsis, it talks about how when the GIs came home from the war and tried to use their GI Bill, Black and Brown GIs were not able to use their bill for housing and were segregated, forced to live in different places. And that's really the birth of redlining. And that was the reason why we wanted us to take a look at that, to see how the housing system, the system that we are looking at right now, actually, where it started. And when I show this to peers and students, they are blown away that they ask questions like, is this what happened in Decatur? Is this kind of what is happening in these other cities? And I was like, well, let's talk about that. So we wanted to offer up, that video as a way of kind of setting the stage for the work that we're doing. And first analyzing and taking a look at what Brookhaven looked like before the city's founding. And then our charge, of course, is being able to look at the mission statement and make suggestions or ask questions about it. So we do have a bit of work to do as it relates to being able to take a look at the mission and the vision statement for Brookhaven, and perhaps making some suggestions for the city if we find that suggestion should be made. So that was the reason for choosing that homework assignment. As we go forward, later on the agenda, we'll talk a little bit about the assignment that we'll all participate in for our next meeting in June. And one that we hope to pull on all of the expertise of the group in front of us. And so I'll leave that until the end. Commissioner Pasquale, I think that we had one member of contributors join us. Hey there, how are you? You know, your name is still, it's I don't know, on my screen, I see your name, I can't, it has Commissioner Pascal's label on it. Huh. How can we change that? Would you like to introduce yourself to our committee?
Yes. My name is Kathy Wells.
Okay, Kathy. Ms. Wells, well, you're the first to join. And so if I can get Commissioner Pasquale, would you like to begin with some of our questions? Maybe our committee might have some additional questions as well. And then, you know, for the sake of time, we would really love to learn more about the city of Brookhaven from your perspective, from the Linwood Park community from your perspective, Ms. Wells. So we had several questions that we wanted to ask you. And so at your leisure, by way of introduction, can you tell us a little bit about your connection to the Linwood Park community?
Okay. I grew up in Linwood Park. And right now, well, I'm one of the commissioners on this team. I work with Police Accountability, Social Justice and Equity Commission. I know that there are people who are going to be joining us who know a lot more than I do. And it was kind of launching the Zoom was kind of difficult. I found the link on the agenda. And so it was asking for a password. And I think that's why more people aren't here yet. So I'm just kind of like keeping my phone available to see if they're texting to see how do they get on here. Okay, so that's part of what's going on. I am on, but on mute. So one of them's on, but she says she's on mute.
Thanks for letting us know.
So
Thanks for letting us know.
I'm sorry.
Thanks for letting us know about that.
Yeah.
So
So Janice Duncan is also on here, and she says she's on mute, but I don't know where she is. I don't know how to operate this. So she is on here. And then Chip Jones, who actually is the Linwood Park historian, he's supposed to be on here tonight too. So I'll do my best to answer whatever questions that you have about Linwood Park as best as I can. And then Chip would be a great resource because he's done all the research, the back history of Linwood Park, and he is he's phenomenal. And I was hoping he would be here. So I'll do my best to help you. Okay. So where do you start? Start with question number one, I guess.
Yeah. What does the term Linwood Park integrators refer to? And
The
how
Linwood
many?
Park integrators, I think it came from Lindley Jones, Commissioner Lindley Jones, Councilwoman Lindley Jones. She came in and she spoke to some of the people who lived in Linwood Park, because what happened to Linwood Park is that Linwood Park was once the oldest Black community in DeKalb County up until year 2000, and then we experienced gentrification. During the time that we experienced gentrification, we started to see our history. The history was so rich, and we started to see our history kind of vanish with all of the multi-million-dollar houses that were built in the area. But we wanted the people there to know who were moving in is that there were people here before you landed here, okay? There was rich history here. Recently, one of our churches celebrated their 100th year anniversary. Linwood Park was one of the most powerful Black communities in DeKalb County. If you go back and you do research, you will find that to be so. And Chip has a lot of that research, and he'll probably pass on to you when you get in touch with him. I think you have his email address on your link. And so the integrators were the people who actually, we had our own school. As a matter of fact, our school, the property for our school, it was a lady named Mary Kate. She came in this case decided that she would donate some property for the people in Linwood Park to build a school. So the people in Linwood Park, what they did is that they raised money. She gave them the land and they raised money. They bought the material and they built their first schoolhouse. Okay. And this was in 1942. They built their first schoolhouse. It served grades 1 through 7. Then after that, it was such a rich, the people in Linwood Park, they continued to raise money because they wanted to expand their school because they didn't have a high school. And the people from that elementary school, they went to high school in Shamley. There was a little Black high school in Shamley that they graduated from. And I think it was a church called Zion Baptist that they held their graduation ceremonies. So then they went ahead and they raised more money. And so they were able to give DeKalb County this money. It was $1,500. They bought property, and then DeKalb County built the school on the Osborne Road, and it's still there. It's not a school. It was repurposed into a recreation center. The people there, that community, the residents of Linwood Park, they raised money for streetlights, sidewalks. They were just a proud people. And so when we look at it today, most of the people who live there, I like a lot of people there, they don't even pay homeowners associations, and they don't even know about the history of the people who have those things there, that tennis court, that field, that gym, the rooms that they need in, you know, it's a totally different thing. So Councilwoman Lindley Jones came in and we were telling her our history. We were sitting around and saying, well, you don't really know what really went on here. This just didn't land here. This is just not from DeKalb County. This comes from a lot of hard work from people who have done great things.
Mhm.
So Lindley Jones came in and she said, hey, listen, we want to hear your story. And I was reluctant. First thing, I was reluctant because we watched people come into our neighborhood and just salvage it. They took people, they would build, but they bought the land, but they were encroaching on other people's land. We saw a lot of ugliness. So there was no trust. So when Lily came in and said, hey, listen, we want to hear your history. No, you don't. You don't want to hear our history. Just another trick. So I got to know Lindley and many other people did, and people started calling me and saying, hey, this is legit. This is a good thing. Let's go ahead and tell them what happened to us. So Lindley said she wanted to hear the story. And she said she wanted to hear the story she was talking to a guy named Gary McDaniel, and he was telling her the story of how he integrated Cross Keys. He was one of the people who integrated Cross Keys High School. And during the time of integration, at that time, that was because the state was requiring us to go to school. We had to go in and integrate schools because the schools were segregated at that time. So we were bused to Cross Keys, and we were also bused to Shanley High School. And during that time of unrest, there were many people who didn't want us there, of course, including teachers. And so Lindley wanted to hear the story, and so did a lot of other people. So she said, okay, all the people who she could gather up who could tell the story, she called them integrators. So we changed the name now, it's Trailblazers. So they told the story about how we went and we had to fight and we had to, well, not me, I came in after my brothers, and the fighting was all going on. And because, of course, it was racial, it was unrest. And we had a lot of difficulty. The kids went through a lot. And the one thing I've always said as an educator is that no one that I ever have record of has ever done a longitudinal study of the impact of Black kids moving from dominantly Black school into white school. It's totally integrated into a white school, and you got to get used to it and get over it, do it.
Mhm.
There were a lot of things that happened to those kids who were very, very bright at our school. We had the secondhand books at that time. We walked into that school, we were behind, even though we had fantastic teachers who held that school together, the Little Park School together. Many, many great people have graduated from that school. So that's how we became the integrators. All right, and there were many, many people. I can't tell you how many there were. The first time I had to integrate a school, I integrated into Jim Cherry Elementary School, which is now KIPP Academy. And that used to be Jim Cherry used to be the superintendent of the DeKalb County Schools. So Jim Cherry Elementary School was named after him. So in integrating into that school, my experience, I think that I had some very good experiences there, but I also had experiences that I didn't understand as a child. And my parents, they couldn't explain why we had to go to these schools, why we had to give up what we had at our school, and why was it better. And so, but many, many Black parents wanted their kids to go to these schools because they felt they would get a better education. So that's what the integrators were about. What was it like living in Brookhaven? Well, the thing about living in Brookhaven, we were like a little Black community, and we were surrounded by all these affluent white people. Not all the people in Brookhaven were affluent. There were some people who were more affluent than us, they thought, and we went to school with them. And it was different. It was different. There were some great people who helped us a lot, and there were people who hated us just because of the color of our skins.
Mhm.
I had teachers who started my first bank account. I had teachers who brought us home, who would bring us home from Cross Keys because we played basketball. We didn't have transportation. They would bring us home. We had great teachers. There were good teachers there, and they hired in about 3 Black teachers. And but their hands were tied behind their backs because they wanted the job. So there was only one that really spoke up to us, So, excuse me, I think this is Peter.
Okay.
All right. Well, that was Peter. Peter was a journalist for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, so he knows lots and lots of history. So I'm just the person who kind of like writes the history, writes the grants, because we have a foundation that is preserving our history.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what happened, and it was really good. I mean, I've got friends that I graduated with. There are two friends that I graduated with from Cross Keys, but two of my friends today that are white have people who were arrested, who got their first black kids who were sent to jail, who got their first felons because of Cross Keys and the cost of university. It was hard. It was very hard. And Gary McDaniel was telling Lindley how hard it was because he was one of those people who had the brunt of it with all the fighting, because there were a lot of riots at Cross Keys. I don't know about Chamblee. I don't know much about that. I just remember that integration, it wasn't one of the most difficult things I've done in my life, but it was one of the strangest things I've done in my life. But all of a sudden you're thrust into, you've been in a totally black environment, and all of a sudden you're thrust over, whether you're white people, we all look different, we have different cultures, and there was nothing. They had nothing for cultural diversity. We got thrown out of school. The first time I got suspended was because when I was at Cross Keys, we did not have anything up for Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King Day, there was nothing in the building. I was a relatively smart kid, and there was another guy there. He said, let's walk out third period because they don't have anything up for Martin Luther King, and that was our second year. And so we were outside, and like, we're not coming back in until you say you're going to put up something for Martin Luther King Day. The principal came out and he said, okay, I'm gonna give you one more time and then you all go home. And all of us had walked out of school. And then he came back out and he said, go home. And when we went home, the majority of us we were crying because we had never been suspended. And also because we knew our parents were gonna be so angry. But the reverse happened. When we went home to tell our parents, they were behind us. And they came back to school the next day and they said, no, this isn't right. We stand for what we stand for. So it was difficult, but there are lessons well learned. So that's what it was.
Yeah. Commissioner Wells, can you talk a little bit more about how close your community was? You mentioned it because I think that you were painting a really beautiful picture of what Linwood Park looked like and how close knit and communal you were.
Yeah, Linwood Park had 18 streets. Okay, you knew every person. You knew every person on every street. They had something. At one time, there were 7 churches in Linwood Park. 7. Now we have there are 3 churches still there. There were people. There was a Jewish guy named Mr. Dynaman who bought he had a store right there on the intersection of Osborne Road and Windsor Parkway. There was a store there. Then later was a church there. We were very close knit. If someone died, everybody knew that person died, and they went to your house, and it was probably the greatest place you could ever grow up. It was the safest place. We never locked doors. We never worried about locking doors. We never had to worry about pedophiles. Kids just walked around freely. And the interesting thing is that was to me, because I was living there when gentrification was occurring, is that when the people who gentrified into our community, it was kind of weird because the people in Linwood Park had always been free. They'd always been free to just walk around and talk, and neighbors being neighbors, you know. So when they initially started moving into our neighborhood, it was very awkward because our kids were we didn't need to walk them down to the center to play because they were safe, and they had mamas all the way down the street who watched them. You know, it was always a cousin or your neighbor could spank you then. We carried a very strong political bloc at that time. We have a day that honors our history. It's called Linwood Park Day. It's the first Saturday in May. It's been going on for 44 years. It was started by Pat Carter. Pat Carter grew up in Linwood Park. She became the first female president of the Cobb County chapter of the NAACP. We still have that day. It is, and it talks about how proud we were as a people, how proud we are as a people, because we all we all still get together. You know, the churches still bind us somewhat, but Linwood Park Day really bring us together. Most of the people who moved away from Linwood Park, because of gentrification, they live in DeKalb County.
Mhm.
You know, there's only about 3 who live like in other counties, but the majority just moved from there to other places in DeKalb. We were when we went, the elders who lived in our community, they met, they had organizations, they've always had a Linwood Park Association. They always went to the meetings down at it was the Maloof building at that time. I was a kid and I would go with them. And they always had a voice. They had a very strong power in DeKalb County. And that's how we were able to get a lot of the things that we were able to get, like the street lights and the street lights, the sidewalks, getting the streets paved, because many of the streets weren't paved when I was growing up. But by 2000, all the streets were paved, going down the main thoroughfare, Osborne Road, they had sidewalks. And all these things were there because of the people who were there before.
Wow. Thank you for that.
It was really great. So if you're doing the research on this, I would definitely recommend that you talk to Chip Jones,
Mhm.
Peter Scott. Peter Scott, and I don't know if you know Valerie Biggerstaff. She's a writer for Brookhaven. Peter Scott, Valerie Biggerstaff, and myself, we wrote the history of the Linwood Park School, hoping to, and then the mayor and the council also approved that we send it to the Georgia Historical Society for so that we could get a historical plaque, maybe on the civil rights run. We submitted it. We're hoping to submit it again, and it talks all about people Brown and how we integrated and everything. So it's very rich, and the people are very close even to today. Even to today, we're all spread out, but there's a funeral, someone passes, we're all there again. So you couldn't have, I mean, you talk to people from Linwood Park through my age, and they'll say you could not have grown up in a better place. It's just a great place to grow up.
Thank you for that, Commissioner Wells. I think there's a question on deck. Commissioner Sigmund, did you have a question?
I'm technically not a commissioner, but I'm the staff support for y'all. Before there was Brookhaven, there was a short period of time, there was a city incorporated called North Atlanta, and it then unincorporated. I don't know when and where that happened, but I believe it included the Linwood Park neighborhood. Do you recall that effort to incorporate, or any time, what it was like to live in the city of North Atlanta? And was there any interaction with your community with that city called North Atlanta? I'm just kind of curious.
Kristen, I would not know that. Chip and Peter would know that. They're much older than I am, and they have different experiences, which is wonderful, because when I listen to their experiences, which is quite different than mine, they did not have to integrate schools. They graduated from Linwood Park High School. They know about the history and the different estates that were in Linwood Park, the Oglethorpe estates. There are different sections. And they can give you detailed history of that particular part of it. I don't recall any of that. And that's why I was so hoping that they would be on this with you, so they could give you further information on this. We will have the, if you just get in touch with Chip and Peter. Peter just called me. So I know that they want to be able to tell this history. I was reading something recently that they're looking for in Brookhaven, Kristen, you probably know. They're looking to compile the history of Brookhaven.
Correct. It's out in, well, right now it's just geographic areas, and we'll put them on our website and tell a story about each marker. But I am going to include in next year's budget for the city council's consideration a 10-year history of Brookhaven, because that's our 10-year anniversary. Most cities don't do a history. So I thought we'd do our first kind of history. Now, a book was written, and I believe, I don't know if we handed it out at the first meeting or if we ever have, but there was a book written on the history of Brookhaven. It was approved, but yes, that one, the city paid for it. and city council handed it out, I think about 3 or 4 years ago. We still have a few copies left. If anybody wants one, I'll see if they're still in print and order them.
And that's a really good book. That's by Valerie Biggerstaff and Rebecca Chase. It's pretty good in history for Brookhaven. The interesting about Brookhaven, from my perspective as a person from Linwood Park, is that Linwood Park would be the only Black community in Brookhaven. There's not going to be another one. I mean, you cannot have a community of Black people that income right now. From what we've learned on the commission in Brookhaven, the median income is 82.5. Now, you know, our community was a community of people who, of course, during that time, many of them went through Jim Crow, civil rights, everything. So you can imagine what our income, most of the people in our neighborhood was domestic workers, you know, but they pushed their children to get educations. Many of their kids grew up to be great people and doing great things. Not to say that if you were domestic, they did harder work. They were greater than anything I ever done. My parents, my elders in the church, they were way greater and smarter than me in all perspectives. They were just smarter. They could work things out better than we are doing today with very little, you know. And so, and with their meetings, they didn't have 20 meetings. They had one a month, and they got a lot accomplished in that time, which I really liked. So I had a chance to serve on the Linwood Park Association for many years. And then after that, DeKalb County went in with Linwood Park, and they were able to build affordable houses in Linwood Park at one point. And they were working on their $2-something million grant. And they built many affordable houses in Linwood Park, and they're still there. And many of those people who bought those houses are still there. So it is it's a community that's worth, and if you have a chance, just drive down when we get back to 2022. We'll be back, and Lindy Jones and a group of wonderful people from Linwood Park Day. They started the MLK Day event. It's a wonderful event that they hold for the whole Brookhaven. And it's something that, with you working on the culture and the history and bringing in people of all cultures, it would be good to have all people to join that MLK event. It's wonderful. It's a good thing. And Lindy Jones has done a good job in embracing this history. And it's a wonderful thing, because I do believe that history trumps gentrification. Because gentrification is very painful if you've never experienced it, especially if you got a close-knit community. It hurts. It really does. And a lot of communities are losing their history to gentrification. And that's one of the things that I'm working on now, to make sure that you aren't losing your church, that something is left there to say that you are here. You are here. When those little kids are down there bouncing balls all around, we want them to know that this was a school. And kids came here, and there were Black kids that were here, and their parents worked very hard for this team. We want to leave our footprint. And that's what we're working on now through the Linwood Park.
So it helps, the school became a recreation center with DeKalb County, and then we inherited it as a city 9 years ago. And it was in bad shape when we got it, really bad shape. One of the reasons we became a city, because the county just wouldn't take care of the parks and anything really. But as part of our phased and ongoing renovation of the building, we're trying to return it to what it looked like when it was school. So the gym floor actually has the colors of the school, and the motto, or the team name, the Rattlers. We actually put that on the floor, the gym floor. And we're trying to find class pictures, like, you know, the basketball team or graduating class, and we'll have them blown up and put them in the gym. So, you know, we're trying to kind of recreate. We kept the old bleachers, the wood bleachers, those old-fashioned ones that you pull in and out and that type of thing. So, you know, we're trying to, it's a beautiful building. It really is. We kept when we redid the windows, we kept the original glass. So, you know, it's a nod to what it was there, why it was there, and what its history is.
Exactly. And I really do. I appreciate you, and also the council, especially Lindy Jones, for really working with us to understanding that history is important. And the people of Linwood Park, we'll never forget. And we work very closely with Lindy Jones to say that, we appreciate what she's done because she's come in and she's embraced it and she has not trembled at any point. She's at every Linwood Park Day. She embraces the history, she applauds it, she shows up at the church's anniversary and also the mayor. And it's a beautiful thing. And I think the story needs to be told beyond Brookhaven because it's a good story. If Brookhaven actually, the cities began to embrace the cultures that were there before they became cities, it would be a great thing. And I think that Brookhaven they have a head start on that. Lindley and I were talking about the other day. So they've done a great job. So we applaud you. We definitely do.
Thank you. And that actually was one of the last questions that we had is what else can the city do to make sure that your stories are preserved and told? And so, and we appreciate that you are already serving on a different subcommittee and then you came to our meeting tonight. And I just want to check the chat because I think that there was another question in chat, Commissioner Wells. I think Rabbi Hershen, did you have a question in the chat? Because I can't, do you mind asking it?
Yeah, I just want to know if you could just tell us a little bit more about since the city's been incorporated, how has the experience changed from when you were younger or from before incorporation to after incorporation? So maybe not from your childhood, but just from over the past 10 years, how have you seen it change?
How much has it changed now? The center and everything?
How has incorporation changed it?
The what now?
How has incorporation changed it?
Of course, as far as that study is concerned, I don't understand the question.
So I just want to know, because you've lived your life here, right? You've seen it change and go through all these changes, but we're focusing on the Brookhaven time and what Brookhaven has done for this area of Atlanta or this area of Georgia more properly. So I'm just curious as to what has changed because of incorporation. How has it changed for the better, for the worse, anything of that sort?
Well, I think since it was, I think there are some good points and there are some points that are not as good. I will start by saying that I think in talking to Lindley Jones and how she has worked with our community members and embraced our history, that has been great. I do think that when we were doing Linwood Park Day before, we would do it. And there were only a certain, we've always had volunteers from our community, but after we moved out and we were displaced, then it was difficult to get our people back and get volunteers working because we've always done it. And we did Linwood Park Day with the County Parks and Rec, and they always gave us a lot of support. That was something that we had to work with Brookhaven to get started again. And once we got it started, it was got better. And Lindley Jones and the council and the mayor recently came up with this ordinance. And I'm sure you've read about it, where there are about 7 different initiatives that they're doing for the history of Linwood Park. One of the changes too, Rabbi, is that I used to play tennis on those courts. I used to teach kids to play tennis on those courts because when I was 16, when the cab came and said, okay, how we can do what's do the pool there, they built tennis courts there. So I used to teach little kids how to play tennis. I was going to take some kids down to play tennis from my neighborhood from the church recently, but now you have to pay. It used to be free. But I understand why. I understand why they're doing it. Because then, that was back in the 70s, the 60s and 70s. And that was when we were giving kids to do, which we need to do now. We need to give kids something to do to keep them out of trouble. And we just happened to be that community where we were able to go play basketball on the courts free. We could just play. It was just free to go to a park. So it's different. And I think it's because of the upkeep of the park. I don't question that. But other than that, I think it's a good place to live. I don't live there any longer. I have land there, but I don't live there. And I moved out because I couldn't really. I just couldn't take it. I was just so used to my whole community, so I moved because of that. Yeah. So I just think it's probably. I think Brookhaven they're on the right track, and I got to give them credit. They are really on the right track with Linwood Park, and I've been very happy with that. I've been privileged to work in the schools where kids attended from Linwood Park when I was living in Linwood Park, also on SJREC Park. with a lot of Hispanic kids. I've had that privilege to work with them. And so being on this commission, then I can see it. I can see the history and how it is from when Brookhaven took over and when it wasn't Brookhaven. So I'm able to see the growth and how cultural diversity is embraced. So I can see both sides of the story. And that's kind of interesting. And what makes me really sad right now is that the rest of our foundation history people aren't here to tell y'all the richness of this history. But if you ever get a chance to, just have a meeting with Chris, Chip and Peter. They are fantastic historians for Linwood Park. They know the history in and out and around. I just experienced it, you know. So, and I do thank y'all for looking into it and, you know, making it a value because it's valuable to us. And it's also valuable to Brookhaven as well. This was saying.
Thank you, Commissioner Wells.
Sure.
Team, are there any other questions that are on your minds before we move on to another part of our agenda this evening?
I'll just close with a couple items that we're working on related to the action items that were in the historic Linwood resolution that the city approved. One is we're working on, we'll work with the community, obviously, the historical marker. And the second is the some kind of community entrance monument. So if you come into Brookhaven, you see our traditional monument sign. It's the same masonry column across the entire city. But we're going to create something with the community of Linwood specific to them, probably, you know, just north of Windsor Parkway as you come in on Osborne Road. It's the actual location hasn't been determined because there's a big project going on there right now. But those are two things that we'll be working on this year and next year.
One of the historians are on here. Just a telephone number there. I think Janice is there. Janice, are you on there? Can you unmute so you can say hi? She just texted me. It is her number, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that Christian I'm sorry to interrupt you. I think that's a fantastic, that ordinance made us so happy because it does say that leaves our footprint there. And I think people should be adamant about leaving their footprints there. There's so many neighborhoods around Brookhaven that have been there for years. And over by Kroger, where the old Kroger used to be, there are many old neighborhoods over there that have been there for years. But, you know, and they were very tight knit because I knew a lot of the people who lived there. I'm just hoping that we can kind of leave a mark. And I think that the council and mayor have done an excellent job in writing that ordinance to talk about. And they allowed us to also have input. They just didn't come up with these bright ideas. And we holding them to task. Not that we have to beat them over the head, but we talk about it. We recently talked to Lindsay about, hey, what's going on with that? But the COVID kind of slowed us down a bit. So it's really good, Kristen, and that is a great thing. I think that ordinance was one of the best things. And then it was all over the media too. So you guys get a chance to look into it. It's really great. And also, if you get a chance to too, in the AJC, there was a huge article recently back in March about China Grove Baptist Church. It's the 100th year anniversary. We have another church in Linwood Park. We have its 96th anniversary this month, I think. So there's a lot.
The 98.
Janice.
Yes.
Okay, that's Janice. See? Janice, say hi. Introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. This has been the hardest time. I've had the hardest time trying to get on this Zoom meeting. But anyway, okay.
So something else we're doing that is not specific to Linwood, but for the entire city. You may notice in some communities or neighborhoods in Brookhaven, there are sign toppers. On top of a street sign, it'll say Ashford Park or Brookhaven Fields or La Vista Park. And
right.
I don't believe there is one in Linwood Park, sign topper. So we've been working on a sign topper program. A lot of cities have them. We just don't have one here. DeKalb County had one and they stopped it probably 10, 20 years ago, probably 30 years ago. But we'll be rolling that out probably in the next 60 days where communities can actually come to us. We'll have probably about 7 or 8 different styles of sign topper. The community picks the style they want. They tell us the name they want on there and we install them in that community. And it'll have to be kind of a geographic based thing. So it's obviously it would be Linwood Historic something. But we're going to be doing that so we can create that, help maintain and create those senses of community within the city.
That's great. That's great.
Oh, that sounds good. That's one of the hi everybody. That's one of the items that Lindley Jones had put on the ordinance. So thank you all for working on that. That was one of my questions that I was gonna talk to her about anyway.
Commissioner Cariello, did you have a question?
Thank you. Yes, I did. So looking at the last demographic data that we have for Brookhaven, it looks like roughly 10% of our population is made up of African Americans or Black population. And I'm just curious if Commissioner Wells or our other guests have a sense of if gentrification has forced people out, if that number is shrinking or increasing. Thank you.
Well, I know that in our neighborhood, I think probably in our entire neighborhood in 18th Street, there's probably at least 30 families still there, if it's that many. And, I'm always working, not only as a commissioner for Brookhaven, but just as a person who's always been a community activist and this leader. I'm always working to make sure that those people are taken care of. And most of them are seniors who are aging in place. They're women. And I'm always looking to help and make sure that they are well taken care of in Brookhaven. I've had conversations with Linda Jones about that. I think it is shrinking in Brookhaven. I think, affordable housing is a necessity. That's one of the things that's very necessary in Brookhaven. I mean, you're going to eventually be priced out. I mean, where you live in Brookhaven, you got to have big money. And
It's follow up to that question. We expect the census results probably in the next 6 months. So we'll be able, because we're right at 10 years old, we'll be able to do the before and after because census tract boundaries don't change. Now, the boundaries don't exactly match Linwood, but it's close enough for comparison. So that question of how the demographics have changed in Brookhaven and the census tracts that make up Linwood Park, we'll actually have that data here in about 6 months.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Janice, did you want to just say a little bit about your connection to Linwood Park and how long you've lived in the community?
Well, hi. Kathy said plenty. I'm a little older than I'm a little older than she is, but what she said is dead on it. We grew up in a community that was full of love. Everybody knew everybody. Everybody knew everybody's mama, daddy, grandmama, auntie, uncle. We had mamas everywhere. If one kid got out of line, you told the mom would say Miss Jolene would not lie about anything, and your mom or your dad would get you, get on you about whatever Miss Jolene said you did. The experience at Cross Keys was a little terrifying for me at first, but I gradually settled in. I remember the fights when we first integrated there. We were bused there. We cried when we learned that we had to go to another school because our teachers were so attentive to us at the Linwood Park School. But we gradually settled in, and you know, it was high school, and I was on the pep squad, the captain of the pep squad. I played sports for a little while. Kathy was a star there. And so, you know, it was just a good experience. I got into no fights, you know, but my brother did. But you know, it was an okay experience. You know, it was okay.
Thank you. Thank you for coming and joining us tonight. I apologize for the entry and how awful it was for you to get on, but we're so glad that you're here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, okay, no problem.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Well-
Kathy said a lot. Kathy, you know, just she did a great job in explaining everything. So, you know, there's not much to say.
Mhm. It's an important foundation for this committee to have, so we appreciate y'all. We really do.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for even asking us to be a part of this. We really appreciate it.
Right.
And we just gave you a brief history of what went on in that wonderful community. To get the total picture of what it is, Chip Jones and Peter Scott, those are the guys who hold the history of Linwood Park, and they hold it in completion. And it's like wonderful, just wonderful. And he's writing it, he's putting it all together. They both are. And those are some guys you might want to tap in.
We will. Thank you. Thank you. Well, Commissioner Pascal, would you like to move us along in the agenda?
Yes, thank you so much, Commissioner Russell, and that was a wonderful panel. Thank you so much for sharing those insights and, you know, making sure that this is part of the history of the city. So I don't know if you remember when we had the ARC's Doug Hooker come to talk to our group last month. He said something that really struck me. He said about, you know, public engagement in these types of exercises. He said how important it is to have the community involved. And one part that he mentioned a lot that, you know, I know we have Julissa and Christian here, but he made a big point about including, you know, the staff of the city in this process and the community, and to do it from the beginning, to not do it as an afterthought, you know, at the end. So it has to be, you know, integral to the process. So that stayed with us, and we wanted to make sure that we make public participation, public engagement a big part of this process of looking at the mission and vision through the equity lens. We know that our commission is about 37, 38 commissioners, which is a pretty, you know, it's a pretty big group, but I think I would love for us to find a way to include staff and residents and businesses and people, other stakeholders of life in Brookhaven that we would like to get their input about the mission and vision of the city. So I think it was Commissioner Carrillo who a couple of weeks ago shared this document on our base camp. If you remember when we had Stephen talk to us last month about exemplar documents, he mentioned the city of Madison, Wisconsin, that has this initiative. It's an initiative of the city. And that initiative has issued, last fall, they issued like a resource guide for public participation. So we have that. I started looking at it. You know, it makes some really good points. So that's maybe a good way to start looking into how do we incorporate more public input into, you know, the process of the mission and vision. So, you know, I know we got to this section a little bit later that we wanted, so I can create on Basecamp a thread, and we can, you know, start putting our thoughts here. But I just want to make sure that we give really some thought to making sure that we include all voices in this process. You know, as I've mentioned before, the mission and vision was part of the original documents of the city. The city was started in December 2012. I think it was in the summer of 2014 that the mission and vision were created as part of a retreat where there were all these strategic statements and strategic documents being produced. And that was when the mission and vision were produced. And when I look at that document from that retreat, you know, the mission and vision of Brookhaven is pretty much what it's like today, but they were inspiring that mission and vision on the 2034, I think it was the 2034 comprehensive plan, you know, document or something. And the mission and vision of that plan from 2034 was so much more, I would say, progressive and inclusive than what the actual mission and vision of the city ended up being. So I just want to make sure that our mission and vision reflects who we are. You know, the current mission and vision does not have the word diversity or anything like that. That document that I mentioned from 2034 had like the words diversity there and welcoming and other words that are not in the actual. So anyway, so I just want to make sure that it's a very inclusive process, not just from where we stand, but for the city and employees and everybody who has a stake in Brookhaven. And then moving from there, we wanted to talk briefly also about Base Camp. About a month ago, Julissa set up this fabulous, project sharing resource for us. And for me, it's been, as I was telling her today, it's been a game changer. And I'm not very much into using apps and these types of softwares for planning projects, but I love Basecamp. And I've posted a lot on Basecamp, but I just want to give you a sense, if you haven't gone to Basecamp, I'm gonna invite you to please poke around and look around, because there's a lot. There's a major, headquarters, folder, but there's also spaces for the different subcommittees. So our subcommittee has its own area where we can do campfire and messaging and upload links and stuff. So I've created one section called history links, I think I called it. And in one of them, I have a document where I will uploaded a lot of links that I found online, and I found a Georgia State dissertation about the history of Brookhaven. But I've also found a lot of articles. There was an article from 1949 in the AJC saying that, it was really, Brookhaven was really two cities because it used to be a village, back then. Stories from documents from 1965 when the residents of the village then decided that they didn't want to be part of Atlanta or part of Brookhaven. They just wanted to be, unincorporated DeKalb. So there's just a lot of really good documents. I also want to thank Susan Hill, who is the city clerk, and Christian put me in touch with her, and she's facilitated a lot of documents that I've uploaded there. As you know, that Christian mentioned in one of our earlier meetings, the city of Brookhaven bought the database of the Brookhaven Post, which is a newspaper that doesn't exist anymore. They apparently bought the database that pertained to city meetings and city documents. So there's a lot of videos about, especially, the initial meetings. It's mostly videos. I thought it was going to be more stories, but it's a lot of videos. So I took some pictures from what I saw and posted them there. Susan also ordered me a book, which I think it was Commissioner Cariello who also mentioned it in another meeting, not from our subcommittee. It was a book that captures it's like a history of Brookhaven through images. She ordered that book for me, so I have to go pick it up. But there's just a lot of resources out there. I contacted the Atlanta History Center, and they sent me maps and a big document with stuff. So I posted that there. So I want all of us, to take ownership in this project and look at the history. And because I think because we're such a new city, 2012, and the mission and vision was part of that creation from the beginning. I think we all need to understand the history of the city, predating, cityhood, but also, the origins of the city and how the mission and vision came about. So all these documents are going to help us get there. And I think Christian has a question.
Yes, just real quick. I want to make sure I understand the direction of the community engagement as it relates to the vision and mission. Is it to get feedback and reaction? Because most people in the community don't read the vision and mission statement, or is it to amend it?
Oh, we can't amend it, but I would like, that's why, I want to see what, if maybe we can get some reactions from people, maybe do public town halls, a forum, interviews.
Definitely.
I want to get some kind of feedback on, does this vision and vision reflect the city that you live in? You think that's where I was thinking. And, does it really reflect the city where we live, or is it, that's really where I was going to, but obviously this is open to our discussion and to, where the group wants to go. But that was my, and to me, a mission and vision may just seem like, oh, it's just a statement, it's just words. But to me, the mission and vision, and I was saying this in the meeting we had last week, where we talked 2 weeks ago, we talked about the verdict in the trial in Minneapolis. I think we canceled the book club, and we still, Karen, Commissioner Cariello, and Commissioner Korn and a few of us met anyway. And I was talking, to me, this mission and vision is a foundational thing. And it's, your mission and vision sort of defines who you are as a city. It sort of states what values you stand for, who you are as a city, your identity as a city. And I think it lays the foundation for what the city is and what the other subcommittees are also going to accomplish. So I think we need to really look deep into the foundations of the city so that we can, everything else, the policies in the, and the programs, from all the other parts of the city sort of reflect this foundation of the mission and vision.
So what's going to happen here in a couple of years is going to be a rewrite of the comp plan. So if we were an old city, you'd have vision and mission, and it probably doesn't change for 20, 30 years at a time.
Mm-hmm.
It would be the entry document to the actual comprehensive plan. And for folks that don't know, every city and county in America has a comprehensive plan. It's just how you're going to use your land is what it comes down to. But it makes very definitive statements as it relates to land use, and roads, and parks, and all kinds of stuff. But it always starts with a vision and mission.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Brookhaven is unusual because we're a startup city. So that alignment between those two documents probably isn't as tight as it should be.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in Georgia, every community has to update its comp plan every 5 years, and you get to do a baby update every other year. So as a new city, we did a baby update a couple of years ago. A couple of years from now, we're going to have to do a complete rewrite of the comp plan. I would suggest that maybe one of the recommendations that comes out of this committee is that rewrite of the comp plan is preceded by a community exercise to rewrite or revisit the vision and mission. So it starts off on a solid foundation, because I agree with you. It is a pretty generic, old-fashioned mission. I mean, I could have written in my sleep, I could probably find 20 other cities within 1,000 miles from here that have the exact same one.
Mm-hmm.
And it is missing some keywords. It doesn't talk about values at all. So I would envision a really good recommendation coming out of the group would say, hey, before you go into your next comp plan review, you probably need to do a complete reset on the vision and mission, because as you pointed out, and none of us were here when it happened, it doesn't appear that there was a lot of public input to the original vision and mission. It sounded like the council and the mayor, who are our elected officials, don't get me wrong, they had a facilitated discussion and they wrote the vision and mission. But I don't get the sense there was a lot of public input. But it has been our lead document or lead page of the budget every year, and it is the lead of the comp plan. So it is an important document. I managed to it. So what it says and how to amend it, I think, is an important thing coming out of this committee.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Christy. And I think you make the point about the comprehensive plan. That's a really good point. Because it should be the foundation for when you update the plan next time. So thank you. So I know we're running out of time. We wanted to give you some homework. Somebody has a question, Kim. Go ahead, Kim.
No, just real quick. And although Christian just disappeared, I think. Oh, there he is. So one thing I just would say is that, or for your consideration, understanding that there are both policy and legal implications to changing the vision and mission statement and also the comprehensive plan. And clearly this subcommittee can make recommendations to the commission and to the whole body about how your work can inform those processes in the future. Is there an opportunity in the more immediate to engage both commission members and the community at large into the, person who's run businesses guided by mission and vision, they're good and important, but what it is the soul of what comes out of the process and the opportunity to engage people in that conversation. And where you put it, it could be all kinds of places. It could end up being a billboard. It could end up being, the bottom line on posters or whatever. So the process that you go through as a subcommittee, both
together with the commission and with the community over the next several months can inform a process 6 months from now, 2 months from now, and 2 years from now, but could also be incorporated in some way and live now. So I would say that don't not go through the process and still engage and still grab the information and then be creative, be exciting, be bold of where it lives in the ethos and culture of the community.
And let me give you 2 examples of that. And one of them is a very good one here in Atlanta. I think it's Mayor Young that came up with it. But what was his tagline for race relations in Atlanta for the longest time? About Atlanta. We're too busy to hate.
Too busy to hate.
Yeah, and that became a tagline. That didn't change the city of Atlanta's vision or mission, but it became a tagline that connotates all kinds of related things to what we're doing here. Another example, I shared it with our chairs and our facilitators. I don't know if it ended up on the website, but it was the city of Hayward, California, that they have a vision and mission, but they also have a little tagline that says something like, hate has no home here, or something like that. And on their entry sign into the city of Hayward, California, if you look it up, at the bottom is an extra sign that says, hate's not tolerated here, or something like that, the city of no hate, or something like that. So you're right, there are other vehicles, taglines, logos, mottos, those types of things that could come out of this that would be very useful, that can be implemented right away. And before we close, there's something else that's coming down the road, coming from one council member that you all might want to weigh in on and incorporate, support, or whatever. But Councilmember Gavia, who's our longest serving council member, he's our last founding council member. He is not running for re-election this year. So, he'll be 9 years of service from the very beginning of Brookhaven. And he and I have been working for about 3 months now on a document. And for lack of a better term, it's what's expected of an elected official in Brookhaven. And it's kind of it's decorum, it's how it's the collegiality, and what makes Brookhaven a successful city, regardless of what endeavor we go after, is that the city council gets along. They don't argue, and they don't stab each other in the back, and they don't shout. We don't have food fights in public meetings between our elected officials, and it's because they behave in such a professional manner. So he's working on this kind of rules of engagement. This is what we expect of you if you're going to run for office and you get elected to serve and represent your district on the city council. This is how we expect you to comport yourself. Well, that kind of is along the lines with the values discussion that we've had in previous meetings. So once we get that done, he's going to introduce it. It's not an initiative of the administration, but we support it. I'll make sure it gets incorporated into this process somewhere, because that is part of the success of the organization, is how we interact with each other.
That's wonderful, creating those rules of conduct. That's really great. Yeah. So I think let's go back to Commissioner Russell so we can close the meeting, and she's going to talk briefly about our homework for next time. Commissioner Russell, go ahead, and we're ready to finish after that.
Okay. Christian, what is the diversity of the city council?
2 women, 2 men, 2 white women, Asian male, white male.
Okay, thank you for that information. Okay, so what we thought we would do to kind of have us thinking broadly about what mission and vision statements could look like, I thought of, we thought of having us do some research on our own cities. If you could, in the chat real quickly, pop in there where you grew up. Not where you call home today, but where you grew up. Okay, so we have a diversity of places that we called home. I would love for us to start with our city and take a look at and see if we can find from our city our mission and vision statements, even if we're able to find value statements. And we're going to create a folder in Basecamp for all of this information to live. From our individual cities, we can then look where we went to college or where we spent another portion of time. Again, to take a look at what other cities might be doing by way of inclusion, by way of how they are just describing their city. Because as we are trying to take a look at our mission and vision statement and potentially making recommendations, we wanted to take a look at a larger swath of what mission and vision statements could look like. So I would love for us to do that. And then we'll give ourselves a deadline, and we'll make sure that we communicate that really well so that Commissioner Pasquale and I can create a PowerPoint presentation of these mission statements that as a subcommittee we collect, and also do some kind of word web so we can pull out some of the words and the phrases that we've noticed at with other cities. How does that sound as a useful endeavor?
How about a friendly amendment?
What's that?
Maybe it's because my profession, I do this when I go on vacation, but what if you pick your favorite vacation spot that you felt like I could live here, and find out what they say about themselves.
Wonderful. Thank you, Christian. Kim, did you want to add?
No, I'm good.
Oh, okay. I thought your hand was up.
No, I just watching the time too.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. We are over time, and we do want to be conscious of that. This has been a wonderful meeting. Thank you so very much for all of y'all being here. And thank you for our panelists who have departed. They were allowed to leave while we conducted our business. We look forward to collecting all these beautiful mission statements in Basecamp. So have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.